Here's a horrifying thought. You could have bad breath right now and have absolutely no idea. Because here's the cruel trick your brain plays. You literally can't smell your own breath. Your nose gets used to your own scent and just tunes it out, so you could walk around all day talking to people leaning in close, completely oblivious. Comforting, right? But don't panic, because in this video I'm breaking down the 5 real causes of bad breath, and the good news is that almost all of them are easy to fix once you know which one is yours. Let's figure out what's going on in your mouth.
First, let's clear something up. Bad breath, the technical word is halitosis, is almost never about not brushing hard enough. It's usually about one specific source you're missing, and the number one cause is going to surprise a lot of you. It's not even your teeth. So stick around, because I'll also give you a dead simple test at the end to check your own breath right now. No awkwardly asking your friend required. Let's count down the 5 reasons.
Reason number 1, and this is the big one most people completely ignore: your tongue. Look in the mirror and stick your tongue out. See that whitish coating on the surface, especially toward the back? That coating is a thriving city of bacteria, dead cells, and food debris. And the surface of your tongue is rough and bumpy, full of tiny crevices, basically a shag carpet that traps all that stuff. Those bacteria produce sulfur compounds, and sulfur is exactly what rotten eggs smell like. So you can brush your teeth perfectly and still have bad breath, because you skipped the single biggest source. The fix? Gently scrape or brush your tongue every day, all the way to the back as far as you comfortably can. A cheap tongue scraper does this better than a brush. Honestly, for a lot of people, this one fix solves the whole problem.
Reason number 2, dry mouth. Remember how saliva is the hero that washes everything away and keeps bacteria in check? Well, when your mouth dries out, those bacteria multiply like crazy and the smells build up with nothing to rinse them away. This is exactly why everyone has morning breath. Your saliva production drops while you sleep, so you wake up with a dry mouth and a bacterial party. It's also why your breath gets bad when you're dehydrated, stressed, breathing through your mouth, or on certain medications. The fix is straightforward. Drink more water throughout the day, and if it's a constant problem, sugar-free gum stimulates saliva. Avoid the temptation of mints, which are usually loaded with sugar, and just feed the bacteria.
Reason number 3, food hiding where you can't see it. If you're not flossing, little bits of food get wedged between your teeth and down near the gum line, and then they sit there and rot. Yeah, rot! Bacteria break them down, and the result smells exactly as bad as you'd imagine. This is why some people brush religiously but still have breath issues. They're cleaning the front of the stage but ignoring backstage. Certain foods make this worse too, garlic and onions famously, but those work differently. They actually get absorbed into your bloodstream and you breathe them out from your lungs for hours, which no amount of brushing fixes. But for everyday trapped food smell, the answer is simple. Floss daily. Clear out the rotting debris and the smell goes with it.
Reason number 4 is the one to take seriously: gum disease. If you've got persistent bad breath that just won't quit, no matter how much you brush, scrape, and floss, your gums might be the culprit. When plaque hardens into tartar below the gum line, it creates little pockets where particularly nasty bacteria thrive, way out of reach of your toothbrush. These produce a strong, persistent odor, and there's often a metallic or off taste in your mouth too. Big warning sign: if your gums bleed when you brush or floss, that's not normal. That's early gum disease talking. This one you can't fully fix at home. You need a dentist or hygienist to clean out the tartar below the gum line. The longer you wait, the worse it gets, so don't ignore persistent bad breath. It can be your gums asking for help.
Reason number 5, sometimes it's not your mouth at all. Around 90% of bad breath comes from the mouth, but the other 10% can come from elsewhere. Things like sinus infections and postnasal drip trip bacteria-rich mucus down your throat. Tonsil stones, those little white chunks that form in the crevices of your tonsils, are basically concentrated balls of smell. Acid reflux can send odors up from your stomach, and certain conditions, and even crash diets and low-carb ketosis, change your breath chemistry. So, if you've genuinely fixed your tongue, your hydration, your flossing, and your gums are healthy, and the breath is still there, that's your cue to see a doctor, because your breath might be flagging something else.
Okay, as promised, how do you actually check your own breath without trauma? Forget cupping your hand over your mouth. That doesn't work. The air just escapes. Instead, try this. Lick the inside of your wrist, wait about 10 seconds for it to dry, then smell it. That's a decent approximation of how your breath smells to other people. Or scrape the very back of your tongue with a spoon, let it dry for a few seconds, and smell that. That's your worst case scenario. Not glamorous, but way better than finding out the hard way. Let's settle the mouthwash question, because people treat it like a magic bad breath eraser, and it really isn't. Most mouthwash, especially the strong stuff, gives you a blast of minty freshness that masks the smell for maybe an hour, then it comes right back, because it didn't remove the actual source, the tongue coating, the trapped food, the plaque.
Worse, some traditional mouthwashes are high in alcohol, which dries out your mouth. And remember, a dry mouth makes bad breath worse, so you can end up in a cycle of rinsing, drying out, and smelling worse a few hours later. That doesn't mean mouthwash is useless, it just isn't a fix on its own. An alcohol-free or an antibacterial mouthwash can be a nice extra layer once your actual mechanical cleaning, scraping, flossing, brushing, is handled. Think of it as a finishing touch, not the main event. And whatever you do, don't use mouthwash to skip flossing. Swishing liquid around can't physically pull rotting food out from between your teeth the way floss does. If you're reaching for mouthwash to cover a smell that keeps coming back, that's a sign the real source hasn't been dealt with yet.
There's also a whole category of bad breath that's about what you put in your body, not just what's stuck in your mouth. Coffee is a sneaky one. It's drying and leaves a lingering odor, and that afternoon coffee breath is real. Alcohol dries your mouth out, and the smell processes out through your breath for hours. Smoking and vaping are big offenders. They leave their own stale smell, dry the mouth, and dramatically raise your risk of gum disease, which is itself a major bad breath source, so it's a double hit. Then there are diets. Very low-carb or keto diets can cause a distinct breath that people describe as fruity or metallic because of the way your body burns fat for fuel and releases certain compounds you breathe out. So that's not a mouth cleaning problem. No amount of brushing fully fixes it. It's just a side effect of the diet. Skipping meals and intermittent fasting can do something similar, since less eating means less saliva flow and a drier mouth. The fixes here are pretty intuitive. Stay hydrated, cut back on the drying habits, and be mindful that some of this is just your body's chemistry. And if your breath is genuinely persistent after you've nailed the tongue, flossing, and gums, that's the moment to check in with a doctor, because occasionally breath is a clue to something going on elsewhere in the body.
Let me hand you a simple daily routine that targets the actual sources instead of just masking them. Twice a day, brush for 2 minutes, and crucially, scrape or brush your tongue all the way toward the back, because that coating is the #1 source most people skip. Once a day, floss to clear the rotting food trapped between teeth that no rinse can reach. Throughout the day, sip water to keep your mouth from drying out, and if you want, chew sugar-free gum to keep saliva flowing, especially after coffee or a meal. Notice what's not the hero here? Mouthwash and mints. Those are optional finishing touches, not the foundation, and the sugary mints actively backfire. If you nail the tongue, the floss, and the hydration, you've handled the roughly 90% of bad breath that comes from the mouth. And the one rule that overrides all of it? If you've genuinely done all that consistently and persistent bad breath is still hanging around, stop trying to out-rinse it and go see a dentist or doctor, because at that point, it may be flagging gum disease or something beyond the mouth. Bottom line, bad breath almost always has a findable, fixable source, and panicking or drowning it in mints is the wrong move. Work down the list in order. Scrape your tongue first, since that's the biggest culprit. Then floss out the trapped food. Stay hydrated and watch for bleeding gums that need a dentist. Cut back on the drying habits, like smoking and excess coffee and alcohol. Treat mouthwash as a finishing touch, not a fix. 9 times out of 10, it's the tongue, and that's a cheap scraper in 30 seconds a day. And if you've truly handled all of it and the breath persists, that's your cue to see a professional, because occasionally your breath is trying to tell you about something beyond your mouth.
So let's recap your battle plan. Scrape your tongue every day, that's the big one. Stay hydrated, floss out the trapped food, watch for bleeding gums, and get them checked. And if all that's handled and the breath persists, see a doctor. 9 times out of 10, it's the tongue, and people are genuinely shocked at the difference one cheap scraper makes. Try it for a week and report back in the comments. And if you want to keep your whole mouth healthy, go watch my video on the everyday habits that secretly destroy your teeth. Hit subscribe, go scrape that tongue, and I'll see you next time.